And that made me think of this. When I was a young mama, I always had a minivan. And Chuck Morgan was out making us a wonderful living, but he was gone traveling all over the United States. And I had these little children all close together, and everybody seems like they were always crying and whipping each other. And I would be white-knuckling it, trying to get somebody to a soccer practice that they really didn't want to go to. And everybody would be crying and yelling, and that sensitive baby, that middle one, would ask me deep, deep questions all the time. For example, questions about the solar system. And finally one day I said, baby, I didn't pay attention in school. Is there anything you'd like to know about Young and the Restless? And let me tell y'all, she went through a phase where she was worried that who was going to get to go to heaven. She wants everybody to go to heaven. And I remember her asking me about people, and everybody would be yelling in the back seat and hungry and all that, and her little voice would say, Mommy, is Johnny Cash going to heaven? I remember that day, and I remember what I said. I said, yeah. Yes, Johnny Cash is going to heaven. He and June have been spreading the gospel with Billy Graham all over the United States. Yes, he'll be in heaven. Okay, and I got to thinking about this when all this was in my mind. I've got a daughter-in-law we are in love with her, and she is so smart and such a good mama, and I watch her talk to my grandbabies, and she makes sense. And it's just made me look back. And I think I said some crazy mess. But I was tired. So she was worried about who was going to heaven, and she asked me about J-Lo. And this was years ago, and I'm a huge J-Lo fan. And she said, Mommy, is J-Lo going to heaven? Just let me tell y'all, I was in a bad place, okay? I was in a bad place, and I think I'd gone up a size in my pants. And she asked me about J-Lo. She goes, is she going to heaven? And I said, I don't know. I don't know. I think she needs to mature spiritually. And she's going through a lot of men right now. I said it. I remember saying it, and it was wrong. And I'm sorry. And I should have never said it. One reason I shouldn't have said it, I went through as many men as J-Lo ever thought about going through, honey. It's terrible. The only difference was mine were not successful people. Who do you think's easier to raise? I mean, just yell it out. Boys or girls? Boys. Boys. Every once in a while, a little frail woman will yell, girl. And she's probably being threatened. But anyway, no. We love our girls. I love my girls. I truly do. And I know that when I'm in the nursing home, they'll be the ones to come and pluck my chin hairs. Because my boy will be off with his wife and her people. Because he said to me, he brought her home and he said, you got a terrible look on your forehead. And I said, oh, it's nothing against her. It's just I'm jealous because I thought you would only love me. I know that's twisted. I know it is. But he was the best thing that ever happened to me. All right, my kids all yell at me, and my husband, everybody's in a bad mood all the time, and he's the only one that's never fussed at me. And he was just the sweetest child growing up. And so when he said he was going to marry somebody and move off, it was awful. But let me say that I love her, and they live near us, and she's like another child to me, and it has been a blessing. She is very sweet and has forgiven me for my forehead looks. But anyway, but he said to me right before they got married, he goes, Mom, she's going to be my immediate family. You're now my extended family. He said, Mom, that's biblical. I thought, why did I show him the Bible? Let me tell y'all about him. He's an old soul. Have you ever met anybody that was an old soul? He was born an 80-year-old man. He has had a garden since he was in 6th grade. He plays the mountain dulcimer and the banjo. He woodworks. He makes spoons. He makes spoons. I mean, he is so yummy. All right, his favorite music is gospel bluegrass. His favorite, oh, well, no. Okay. Ding-a-ding-a-ding. All right. His favorite artist was Dr. Ralph Stanley. Dr. Ralph, look at you. Look at you. Knowing who Dr. Ralph Stanley is. Okay, for those of you who don't, he was on the Oh Brother Where Art Thou. That is probably the most famous thing he did. But he was the godfather of Mountain Soul. He ended up dying at like 92. He had a little cowboy hat propped on his head. Yummy. Okay, he would come through Knoxville, and I would take my son to see Dr. Ralph when my son couldn't drive. They propped little Dr. Ralph up on stage because he was so old. I almost threw my panties at him because that's what you do to Tom Jones. And I love him. But anyway, I'm standing there listening to Dr. Ralph Stanley singing gospel bluegrass, and I think to myself, how many teenage boys are listening to this? What are teenage boys listening to? Rihanna, Walk a Flock of Flame, some of that nasty goings on. I thought, wouldn't it be funny if I had to yell at my boy, turn that gospel bluegrass down. You're out of control. If I hear I saw the light one more time. Okay, the 5 love languages. All right, me and Chuck Morgan in Sunday school class went on a retreat, and they talked to us about the 5 love languages. You know, and it's written by little Gary Chapman, who is a doll and tiny and does, that man's probably getting in his 90s, and he does sit-ups every day. And that little thing, and I got to meet him later, he was a doll. But anyway, the 5 love languages, if you don't know about that, you've got to get it. There was a 5 love languages for your marriage, and then there's one for your children. And you need to get that. Everybody's got a love language. And you take the test. You got to read the book and take the test. Well, you don't read the book. I didn't. But you can take the test. I like to read books about Hollywood murder. So anyway, you take the test, and then you can, and your husband takes the test, and you find out what his love language is, and he finds out what your love language is. And if you find that out, then you can feed them their love language. And then, so I can feed Chuck Morgan his love language, and then his love tank fills full. If I don't, he could go to work and be at a water fountain, and some whore comes up to him and starts feeding him his love language, and then he feels a tingle, and then Satan swoops in. So these are the 5 love languages. Quality time. If you may know somebody that just wants you to sit on the couch and watch ESPN with them. Something like that. Then there's gifts. That's my sister's love language. It doesn't have to be something expensive. If you, just so you thought of her, if you buy her a card and a rose from the grocery store, she'll bawl her eyes out. And then there's words of affirmation. That's mine. But physical touch. Physical touch, which I know every woman in here is like, that's my husband. Physical touch. But it's not that kind of physical touch. We're talking about the physical, you know, when you know people that just want to hug you and squeeze on you and all that all the time. That's their love language, is physical touch. But women think, oh, that's my husband's, and he's on me like a duck on a June bug. But that's not the. All right, and then there's words of affirmation. That's mine. So all Chuck Morgan has to do is say, you look beautiful tonight. You are a good mama. That Trisha Yearwood's chicken piccata is to die for. And then my love tank fills full, And then I'm willing to do something vulgar with him. And then he gives me money to get my hair highlighted. See, it works out, you know. It's God's way. And then my husband's is acts of service. So for him to feel loved, I have to go in the garage and build a set of shelves.